Additions or deletions, we do have an update on the right-of-way over on Route 202 and 4. So if we'd like to have that updated, or an update, Steve is here tonight. I'd like to add that to the agenda under, I guess, old business A.
Sure. I'll move that we add that to the agenda.
So it's been moved to add old Route 202 for right-of-way to old business item A. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we'll add that to the agenda.
Up or down on that one?
Up.
Thank you.
We have no appointments this evening, and I would open it up for public comments if anybody has something to say that you're not on the agenda. Sensing none, we'll move on to under correspondence. For those that are interested, the treasurer's reports, motor vehicle and excise tax reports, and Senator Woodsome's newsletter came into the Selectmen's office, and you certainly have the ability to get a copy of that if you contact Sherry or Gary. Reports and staff initiatives, Selectmen's reports, let's start down that end of the table. Dwayne, anything?
Nothing to.
Tim?
Yes, I went to my first 12-town meeting last night, and we had Jeff Herman from MMA laying out their legislative plans for this year. We also made plans for candidates night, which may be a little bit different this year because we're going to take an approach where we want to hold the candidates responsible for what they do in Augusta, because everyone is pretty unanimous in being upset with the way the people's business is being done in Augusta, with all the infighting, voting strictly along party lines. And we want to let the candidates know that we'll be watching what they do, we'll be communicating with them, and if they come back without delivering for the town and their region, that in their next election they may not be supported or may even be opposed. So I think it's going to be kind of a strong message. Thank you.
Okay. And do we still call it the 12-town group, or it's now down to 10, right?
I think it's down to 10 with 2 resignations, yes.
Okay. John, anything from your side?
I met with the garden committee last night, and they are looking to fix the fence that was vandalized this summer, and also the drainage system that was also vandalized. Also, there's a plan to put in a nice little area for lunch spot and or meeting area outdoors next to the shed. So basically beautifying the garden area. There's been a lot of talk too of the way that you go about people who are not following the contract in their use of the garden facilities. Those people that may come in and pay late or not pay at all, or come in, pay for a garden spot, and don't do anything with it and just let it go to seed. So that does affect gardens next to the one that is gone to weed, because the seeds from the weeds blow into the garden next to you and kind of seed that garden with the weeds. So it's problematic. I think the discussion a lot was want to be flexible. There are some people that keep very, very meticulous gardens. They weed it constantly and it's beautiful. And other people just don't do that. So we want to give the people that don't do that a little slack. And the people, but the people that just haven't done anything with their plot, there's a need to take the plot back. So anyway, that was a lot of the discussion last night.
Okay. Gordon, anything?
No, I don't have anything this week, thank you.
The only thing that I'll mention, if for those of you that watch local news around, you notice that Eco Maine, which we are a part owner of, has started to engage in the collection of organic waste, if you will. And that's the one piece of the waste stream that we do nothing with today. That's the food waste and those kind of things. There has been they've entered into a contract with an outfit that composts that, and they're starting to collect that for any municipalities that are interested. We would have to get with our transfer station recycling committee or our manager, Clint, and whatnot, and make a determination of if do we want to participate in that. There is a special bag that I think they use to collect it, certainly a special container that it has to be put into, and then it'd be transported to Portland, and then Portland will consolidate it at Eco Maine, and it goes to, I think, the plants in Auburn. They rip open the bags come back and go through the incinerator, so there's the plastic bags come out of, or it's really not a plastic bag, but it's some sort of a bag that comes back to Eco Maine and just gets turned into energy, basically. And then the organics get composted, I guess, is the method that they're using. So that will be, or potentially could be, another piece of the puzzle of recycling within the community. So kind of stay tuned. But if you did see that clip, the one thing I guess that you should take note of is that we're one of 21 municipalities that own that company, Eco Maine. And we've been an owner of that company since the early 80s. So that's all I have, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that can be up to 30% of the waste stream, too.
That's what they're saying.
I'm going to talk for quite a while tonight, so sit back, I guess, and have to listen to me for a couple of moments. First of all, tax bills. For residents sitting at home or in the audience here, I'm sure you got your tax bill last week. They were, the first installment is due the 14th of October, and the second half is due Friday the 14th of April next year. And just a reminder, we do not send out notices for that second half. You know, that's of concern to some, and we've had requests for doing that. Maybe we do that in the future, but as of now, we do not do that. I want people to remember that we've listened to your complaints about land being overvalued. You were right. In the eyes of the state, we were about 17% overvalued in our land valuations without buildings. So we made a change. And on your bill, unless you have tree growth, there's probably going to be a reduction in your land value. Maybe not in your tax bill necessarily, but in your land value. And anytime you decrease the valuation of either buildings or land, you're going to have to increase the mill rate to raise the same amount of money. So there's an 87-cent increase in the mill rate for this next fiscal year. The mill rate has gone from $13.95 to $15.24. That seems like a huge increase, and if you only look at that, it is. But 87 cents of that is for a downward valuation in the land town-wide. I mentioned the tree growth would see an increase and not a decrease in valuation. School and municipal expenses, as approved by town meeting, were up $597,000 in total, municipal and school. And that takes up 42 cents of that tax increase, which is what the Selectmen and the Budget Committee were estimating, thinking that we were going to be between 40 and 50 cents increase on the mill rate this year. Concerning an update on the salt shed, the overhead door installation is underway. They've not completed that yet, and as soon as they're done with that, final grading and paving inside will happen, and then later the grading and paving outside the structure. If you haven't been down, take a drive down, walk in the building. It's your money that is building this building, $700,000 in total, and it's nearly complete. Some of the things that Tim was talking about in terms of legislation. I was elected as a member of this Senate district to the Legislative Policy Committee for Maine Municipal Association. We've had one meeting to form an agenda for this legislative session of things to comment on and to not comment on in terms of prioritization of legislation. There'll be another meeting October 5th, getting ready to put forth the priorities with the start time in January for this next legislative session. Suffice to say, the mood in Augusta is low, and the expectations for progress in this next session, I think, are equally low. Moving over to some good news. Workman's comp refund. I'm pleased to say that because we have a lot of safe employees here, we got over $5,200 back from our workman's comp fund, which is about a 10% of our premium, and that's a very good refund from MMA. We'll talk more about Central Station, the firehouse bonding question in a minute. I'll leave the open house dates for that. On this Sunday, there's going to be a bike ride coming through town here on the Gore Road. So if you're out and about, there could be several dozen bikes within a short period of time coming down the Gore Road. It's for a fundraiser for a bicycle center in Sanford. And since we're entering the political season here, I want to go down just very, very quickly on the 5 citizen initiatives that you're going to be voting on. There's 5 citizen initiative questions this fall. First one is marijuana possession and use. Second one is a 3% tax on individual main taxable income above $200,000. Question 3 is universal background checks for firearms. Question 4, raising the minimum hourly wage incrementally. Question 5 is ranked choice voting. So we have a lot of homework to do to be informed voters this fall. And the selectmen have decided we're going to collect signatures this fall to have a ballot question next June on whether or not town meeting should be eliminated and replaced with 100% voting by referendum at the polls. So we're going to need, I think, at least 6 volunteers to come and be at the polls, not all day, but the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and I figure we'll need 2 people for each of those 3 shifts to simply collect signatures from registered voters after they leave the voting place. If you're interested in doing that, or you want some more information on why we're collecting this, you can contact myself or Christine Torno. A bit of employment news. Doug Foglio, the Public Works Director, this has been planned for quite some time. Is leaving town employment as of October 1st. He and I have been talking about how long he was going to do this job, I guess ever since he accepted it. He's got a lot of other personal projects and backlogged business projects that he'd like to do. I greatly appreciate the help he's given me in the 3 years I've been here, and I'm going to miss his expertise, certainly on the road and the public works projects. October 14th, a Friday, is Massabesic homecoming football game, and that's also the dedication of the new field that all 6 towns have paid for. So Friday the 14th is a grand opening celebration as part of that Friday night football game, and you'd probably stay tuned with the papers or look on the school website to see more details on that. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Any questions, comments? Let me add just one other thing. There's been some rumbling around town of where the second deputy is. I think the interviews are scheduled or are being scheduled. There's a process that they have to go through to offer the opportunity with current employees, et cetera, so just so everybody knows, we're not paying for a second deputy yet, and we won't until that person comes on. So the money that was raised at town meeting may or may not all be used this calendar year. The only caveat to that is whether or not we pay for the cruiser up front rather than over a 3-year period, which would lower the cost in year 2 and 3, but if we did that. So for those people that think we're sending an extra bunch of money to York County Sheriff's Department for a second deputy who isn't here yet, we aren't doing that, and we won't do that until that person comes on. And I think it's October something that
September 26, 27 are targeted interview dates, and that person may start in early November.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to new business. Discuss and vote for the appointment to RSU 57 Board of Directors. A little background for those of you that remember a year or so ago, we appointed 2 interim directors. They were to, they wanted to continue with I guess, campaign, if you will, or sign up for election this past June. One did, one because of work changes and whatnot did not. However, the schedule has changed, and she is still on the board because, according to the charter, you don't get replaced in this municipality until your successor is duly elected and or appointed. She is willing to stay on, certainly for another year, so we should go formally through the appointment process. And we have advertised. There's not a list of people that are saying, hey, I'll do it. So with that being said, and it's Lindsay Clancy. So what is your pleasure?
Just a comment. I think she should have run if she wanted to be on the board.
Well, I don't disagree.
I really,
Right.
I don't think it's fair to the ones that did run, or anybody that runs for a public office, to appoint them a second turn around. If they need to be reelected, then that was the process that needed to be done.
Just for clarification, nobody ran for the seat that she vacated.
I realize that.
And her school plans changed, well after the filing deadline, so she's willing to serve again. She's been on the boards and attending, as she should be, so it could only make sense to appoint her, and she would have to run again next spring.
Right.
If she wants to continue.
So what's your pleasure?
I move that we appoint. Are we
Lindsay?
appointing or just keeping her?
Let's appoint
What are
her.
we doing?
Well, I think we should appoint
She's
her,
got
right?
to be
Okay.
sworn in.
Do we appoint her for the rest
Right.
for the rest of the year? Yes.
So you're making that motion, John?
Yes.
So a second for that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Selectman Neal. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, is it the rest of the year or is it the rest of the term?
The rest of the fiscal year. We can only appoint until the next annual election,
Okay.
okay? And I believe that would be the case, right?
June, not November.
Right, June. So we can only appoint through the end of June. Any other discussion? Sensing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
All right, fiscal year 16 audit update. Encouraged by the fact that our auditor now has a draft in front of us, and it's still in September, so that's good news. And if certainly it's public information, if anybody would like a copy of it, we do have Chris that will be in. I guess there's a couple of dates, right? That we've
Do
given.
you have a preference for him coming here either September 27 or October 11?
I'd love to see him this month,
Good.
just so that we get it done. And we're all squared away. Has he separately made any recommendations to?
No, I think he's essentially done. They haven't done the finished document yet. He's got one piece of signed correspondence he needs to get back to me after I digest this a little more, and I'm essentially ready to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple of encouraging things, I think, more so on the revenue side. We did collect, and it's on Schedule 1, which is the comparison to the budget. We did collect $460,000 more than what we had budgeted, and part of that is in fees, and excise tax was back on the mend, I'll say, because it's been flat for the last few years. So that revenue has come in and will be utilized in further sessions to reduce the tax burden. We also underspent what we had intended to budget, but I'm not going to go into that yet because we had a article at town meeting that transferred a lot of those unexpended funds into this fiscal year. So I'm not sure what that number looks like after we get done with all of that. So,
We had $700,000 in the salt shed. I think we'd only spent about $3 at the end of the fiscal year, so there's a $400,000 apparent revenue there, which really isn't. So that mutes that down a little. We spent a little over 97% of our expense budget in our entire budget, non-school. So that figure's not quite as high when you get down to brass tacks, and Chris will get all into the details of that. That wasn't the purpose of me putting it on the agenda tonight. I wanted to let the public know that The audit is essentially done. The Selectmen will have this short version. They got it electronically several days ago. And if you have any questions of Chris, get them to me, and I'll make sure that he has them ready for when he comes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is a lot of people know we're moving forward with a vote for expansion of the central fire station in the November election. And I think it's important to understand that this, as a municipality, we have very, very little debt, even with the $700,000 that we just put into the salt shed. So I think it's, I think knowledge is power, and if you know those kind of things, and I guess all I would say is that get as informed as possible before you go and cast your vote. And I guess enough said on that. Any other questions on the audit? You guys okay with having him in earlier than later?
Again, I just got to say, you know, at first blush, we're in pretty good shape and financially. And I think what the discussion's going to come down to is how good a shape are we in? Which is, it's nice to have the extra money there for a crisis that comes up, and that your auditors always say, they usually say, I think you need to have 2 months operation expenses in case something happens. So it's good to have that there. The other piece, if you have more, you have too much money there, then you're basically overtaxing people. Or people can look at it and say, hey, give us some of that money back, or put it more into next year's budget. So I think that's the debate or the discussion that needs to go on here, is when we look at this, how much money have we got, and is this a good, healthy sum of money, or do we have a little bit more that we ought to
And
give back?
remember, we have a new charter that was voted on 3 years ago that says that we have to have 1/12 of our annual budget in a crisis fund. So right now, last year our annual budget was 13.4 million. We're 14.
We're at $1.1 million.
So
crisis.
12% of that, or 12th of that, I'm sorry, has to be in a crisis fund. So well over $1 million, $1.1 million, thereabouts. And that is now, per the charter, that has to be put in a fund. Not, it can be used as in case of crisis, but it has to be separately accounted for. So.
One other point on the audit.
Yeah.
Our net addition to the fund balance, I think, was $562,000, and the Selectmen decided to use $500,000 towards taxes, which is just about spot on. So the money that came out of the fund balance to go toward that was essentially the same as what we added this year.
Okay. Item C, set a date for the workshop with the Water District. Water District would like to meet with the board. There's some interest in, and I think we talked a little bit in and around this economic development and stuff that we had a chat with when we had our goal session the other night, but they would like to meet with us, and I think that should be sooner than later. And are they looking for us to join them at a meeting, or them to join us, or separate?
I don't think it really matters. Why don't you folks run the meeting and they can be in the audience?
Okay. So do we want to run, what do we got scheduled for?
We have nothing next week, and
Would they be ready to meet next week, or would it be better to do it on the 4th, which we have nothing?
I think they'd be ready next week. I went to their meeting last week, and they had USDA and Maine Rural Water financing folks there.
So they need to make a decision on their investment, right?
They would like to talk to you folks about having a place on town property behind the transfer station for the new standpipe. That's the main reason they want to talk to you. So I think we could do that next week.
So is everybody agreeable with that? We'll just bring them in next Tuesday night and, as a workshop. 6 o'clock.
20.
Yeah, I would say 6 o'clock unless anybody has objection to that. If they can meet, then that's fine.
Something to think about on that is if they want to use town property for their water source, I would think that we probably could get some type of reduction on the amount that we have to pay for that water that we're required to by the PUC regulations for fire suppression.
This is the standpipe, not the wellhead.
Yeah.
This is just for the
Well, I think
standpipe.
that
Yeah, but
there
it's-
should be a,
It's, just remember that the requirement that we pay 30, if we use the water district for fire protection, there is a requirement through the Public Utilities Commission requirements that we pay
PUC.
a third, we have to pay a third of their operating cost.
right.
So I'm not sure how that fits in. It reduces their operating cost naturally because they don't have to go purchase additional assets. But anyway, it should be something that we can have for discussion. I'm not sure we get too far with that with the PUC. Anything else?
I'm just looking for ways that we can
Yep,
reduce our
yep.
tax burden.
Okay. Item D, the fire station bond question update. We've all signed this now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I just wanted to kind of pull this together and get people thinking about politics in the November election. The chief is here if you have any questions, but other than that, I was just going to give a little sermonette here on the status of things. A year ago, the Board of Selectmen in town meeting approved up to $25,000 for an architect to look at our space needs for the fire station. Bids went out and we selected Port City Architects, I believe, for $9,800, much less than we could have spent. They had considerable experience building fire stations around the state and adding to them, and I think their experience is obvious. But during that evaluation, Port City came back and asked, how far into the future do the selectmen want to actually plan this addition for? When Matt and I started this process, we were hovering down closer to $1 million, and when the selectmen said, take it out to 10 to 20 years because we don't want to come back in just another 5 years for more money from the taxpayers. So that's what our proposal is. $2 million is a lot of money. It really is a lot of money, especially with the other things that we have here for needs and our tax rate and our primarily residential tax base, and I'm very much aware of that. I'm also glad that this election is going to be a presidential election with maximum turnout. The biggest thing for me is I want voters to be informed, which is why we have 2 open houses coming up. September 19th, this coming Monday, and October 24th, also a Monday, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So before you vote on this, I would encourage you, if you haven't been through the fire station, go down and take a walk through with staff and to see exactly why we're asking for this addition. And I'm going to go through 5 things here as quickly as I can. The lobby and public entrance is poorly designed, and citizens quite often when they come into the building walk right past the secretary, right into the chief or the deputy chief's office. Not that they don't want to wait on people, it's just it's administratively inefficient for that. There are also an increasing number of people that come to the fire station for medical treatment. That's where they go instead of going down to the urgent care. The proposal plans a separate entrance that allows the public a proper entrance for all to be greeted by the secretary when on duty or other staff at other times. And they're segregated from the operations, whereas right now, as most of you know if you've been in the station, once you get in that door, you can get into the whole building, and that's not a good thing. Now, from a paramedic standpoint, or a firefighter, imagine coming back and you're covered in blood, vomit, or diesel fuel, and you need to get cleaned off because you get right back in that ambulance or that fire truck within an hour. We do not have a good place to do that now. If you go in to get cleaned up and you're a mess like that, you're contaminating the area where we do clean laundry. That's not a good thing. 16 years ago, the central station was built with, in my mind, too little money and I think too little vision for the long-term growth of this town, and we are going to continue to grow. My 5 bosses up here at times are sick of hearing me talk about what we're going to be when we're 15,000 people. That's going to happen in the next generation, in my opinion. I probably won't be around to see it, but it's going to happen here. We need to think about those things. We didn't plan any sleeping quarters at that time. People, whether they're students who are being phased out over the next 4 years, or staff, are sleeping on the second floor of an unsprinkled building. There is a second egress there, but they still should not be sleeping up there in the way what we have now. Some of these rooms are more vestibules with a curtain around the front, and if you were sleeping there next to me and I snore, you would not get any sleep because you've got a cotton curtain between yourself and me. Public water is 900 feet away at the elementary school, and I hate it when fire stations burn down. And it's a wooden structure. And I think at the very least we need to bring public water up there. We're also blessed with a sizable call force. Many dozens of people who volunteer their time away from their family. And I don't think it's too much to ask to have a small fitness room about twice the size of my office with 2 or 3 pieces of equipment in there. There would be a day room that would be part of the dining and meeting area now, with a new meeting room off to the side. And I think it's reasonable to say we need to keep that call force motivated and willing to volunteer, because if we don't, taxpayers are going to be paying for more full-time and per diem staff, and that's something we wouldn't need to do if we have an active call department. The construction 16 years ago was thermally inefficient, just like this building was. You folks paid $68,000 for a new roof on this building because it was done poorly to begin with in the way the roof system and all the heating and ventilating was designed here. And the fire station is the same. Ice dams can be how many feet thick? 1 or 2? Just a waste of money. I guess the bottom line is to take the time to get informed before you vote on November 8th, and there's no better time to do that than at one of these 2 open houses on September 19th or October 24th, and ask them any questions you want. I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about the tax rate and the amount of money, and you should be. We're very sensitive to that, but I just wanted to give some history here. Thank you. I didn't intend for the chief to speak. If anybody has any questions, certainly.
My only suggestion is that add another date for the open house and put it on a weekend, so that people have the opportunity to get down there on a Saturday or a Sunday rather than a Monday.
Can we get this out here on the sign?
I would think we should
The
have it
open
on the
houses?
sign,
Yeah,
and on the sign over there.
and also, the town's looking to hire a public works director, help wanted. I don't know how much we can put on that sign, but,
Not much. Dennis and I have had conversations whether that's going to be an interim appointment, because the position's not going to go full-time at least until July 1st next year.
We will have that discussion amongst the board,
Yeah.
so, but we should be at least starting to put out the fact that we will be looking for at least an interim. And I don't know if you can do that, Matt, add a weekend day, Saturday or Sunday. I just don't, Monday doesn't make,
No, we tried to look at multiple schedules of what we have for available time, and that's why we did it from 10 to 7 p.m.
well, you got 2 scheduled, they're both Mondays, so maybe move one of those or
Yeah,
add a third
any
day.
preference from the board of what weekends work for you guys, or if you come down?
I just look at the fact that, there's a lot of folks today that work, certainly, 90% of this community works outside of this community, right? So, I think you gotta give an opportunity to have, all you gotta do is watch what happens at the
Well, we are
transfer.
open 24 hours.
Look what happens with the transfer station on a
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon and a Sunday afternoon, right? That's when,
Certainly, if
Hundreds
anyone
of
wants to stop in
people go.
outside of those times,
Right.
feel free to stop in as well.
but I think if you schedule one for one of the 2 days, I think that would work.
There's one other issue too, that I think people that go into and take a look, they may say, do we need this right now? Can we back this off for 5 years, or can you get around it? I think you'll realize when there is no getting around it. It has to be done sometime. It's either done now, or if it is done 5 years from now, is the financial borrowing going to be any better than it is now? Is it going to be a better time to do it? Is it going to be the price of the work being done always goes up, and right now you can get a pretty good deal on borrowing. So 5 years from now, you could be paying a lot more for it.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Well, yes.
I'd like to note that on this, it says expansion, that term's been used in describing this proposal. But part of that, it should be noted, is to correct deficiencies that weren't taken care of when this was originally built. Some areas that we've already received, I don't want to say notice, but have been brought to our attention by, like the State Department of Labor, which is pretty synonymous to OSHA, is that, there are some things that we're in violation with already. And because we had asked for an inspection, and when you do that, there's no fines involved. They point out what areas you're deficient in, and then there's an expectation that as long as you can develop a plan to remediate, that particular problem, then the municipality's not going to be fined. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to put $5,000 into a building, I'd rather put it into the building rather than paying a fine to OSHA. So I mean, I think Don was right. We're going to end up paying one way or the other. And I know that there are a number of people that have mentioned that, well, why can't we do it, incrementally? I think that that's probably why we're in some of the problems that we're in today, is that we don't take the bull by the horns and do it right the first time, so that selectmen 10 years out aren't faced with this issue again and we're coming back to the taxpayers. Now, the incremental thing to me is, I think the taxpayers get sick and tired of saying, okay, we want X number of dollars this year for the fire department, and then we go back next year and say, we'd like X amount of dollars for the fire department, and then the following year we go back and say it again. They get a little sick and tired of hearing about the fire department year after year after year. So I think we just need to do it and get it taken care of so that we have a facility that's going to serve the purpose for the community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. We will have multiple public hearings that we'll schedule. We'll do as many forums as we can so that people understand what this is and whatnot. So more to come as we move forward to November. Anything else? All right. Item E, Gary and I talked about this. We've received a number of inputs from, and we decided to put this on the agenda tonight. A number of inputs since we've had the public hearing relative to the proposed Shoreland Zoning Ordinance changes. Some of them very well written, some of them very well thought out, some of them attacking each other, which is always interesting. That we can't refrain from that in some respect. But what concerns me, and had a little bit of chat with Gary, is we received no input from anyone in Lake Arrowhead or any of the other ponds or areas in the municipality that are going to be affected. The public hearing, we're going to make sure that as we start our workshops, that those folks understand that it does affect them. We've had the opportunity to go around the lake as a board, although all of us weren't in attendance, but enough of us to get a good feel for what was going on. So if you saw a party boat going around taking pictures, that was us a few Saturdays ago. I was successful in getting a couple of my fellow boaters wet. But so I think we've got a pretty good grasp of what we see, and I will tell you there is a smorgasbord of situations, so we're going to try to talk through those through various workshops. So I guess we need to do this sooner than later. So I really wanted to tee this up tonight of when do we need to have a workshop. So I think we need to do that. We can do that on an off night, or we can do that on Another night, I think what we really need is, maybe not Glenn here, but at least Glenn's input of what was recommended to be changed from the state shoreline requirements, so that we can at least understand what was added, or, I think you guys have talked about that, right? So that we at least know what's in the proposal that differs from the state or becomes more restrictive than the state. So, we've talked about docks and moorings and marinas and I think everything else, but
That's a very small part of that whole
that's right.
shoreline
Yeah, I mean,
ordinance.
But everybody's focused on that. And it's
Everybody's focused on the recreation and not
So-
what they can do and what they can't do in the shoreline zone.
Can I jump on this?
Yep,
Met with Glenn today and talking about our existing shoreline zoning text, if you will, about 12 pages. The state's guidelines are over 60 pages. And to try and compare what we have now and do it in an underlined strikeout mode for the board is really essentially impossible to have a functional document. So unless you object, what we'll do is we'll give you the 12-page text we have today as one document. The other document will have the shoreline zoning guidelines that came from the planning board with notes in the columns. The section that dealt with docks, piers, and wharves. There will be notes in the columns there of what do you want to do with this. The code officer is suggesting that we do not have permits for docks. He does not think that's reasonable now, and that may be at variance with what the planning board decided back along, I'm not sure. And the other one was maintenance, and maintenance of shoreline zoning structures needing a permit. And he's perfectly fine with churning that language around and saying you do not need a permit for routine maintenance. And that was a source of great confusion when we were here before. So when you see this, these two main changes, I think 75 or 90% of the objections to what we did as a first round are going to all but go away. But unless you tell me differently, you're going to get two different documents that you can't flip pages because they're not the same.
no, I think the only thing that I wanted to see was there are sections that we, in our proposed new ordinance, tightened up requirements that were in the state master, whatever they call it.
That we never had.
Right? So that's really, I think, what we need to know is, what was the rationale behind adding an additional requirement,
Yep.
right? So we'll hash through that, but, Tim, go ahead.
If we could just have the same proposal, but have the sections that are stricter than 1,000,
Right.
say even in a different color, that's what I'm looking for, because that's what we're hearing a lot from the public is why are we going stricter than the state?
Yep.
And it would be nice to be able to see what is stricter and be able to ask them more.
And to be perfectly honest, I mean, it's very obvious. There are some folks that sent documents to us that read 1,000 and understand that we're stricter or not, and some folks, I'm not sure that have broken the first page on
Some of
it.
this isn't gonna be as strict as what we've got in there right now.
Right. And that's the other piece that we have to look at, right?
Especially in some of these older camps that are camps, and somebody comes in to convert them into a year-round home. The way I'm reading that, it's gonna be a little bit easier to pull a permit.
It's not gonna be
And
based
If you want
on,
a grandfathered lot, undersized lot, it's less restrictive.
There's one other question that keeps coming back to me by emails, and you folks have seen it. Some of the question is, why are we doing this now when DEP doesn't have a deadline? I don't have a problem with moving forward, but I think if you folks have anything to say about that, whether we're moving too fast, you want to wait for DEP to impose a deadline? Let's
I think
talk
what
about that.
they're doing is giving us a grace period to personalize these changes for our town. That's why they're holding off. That's my
They
impression.
usually do that. Before setting a deadline, they give it out for 6 to 12 months, and then they'll set a deadline in the next year or so. I just want it to be stated publicly that that's a concern raised by some people. Why are we doing this now? We don't have to do this at this time.
I'd
Right,
rather
so-
do it now when we're not rushed
Right.
into making a decision, where in the state
Yeah,
comes
because
down
you know
with
what'll
deadline
happen.
and says, oh God, now we gotta meet this for
You know
this.
what'll happen is the DEP will say by such and such a date, you gotta have this done, and we're gonna be standing here going, huh? So,
They usually give you a year or two.
well, they usually come up with a deadline. This is
I don't know
one
why
of
they
the-
didn't.
yeah. All right, so what do you wanna do?
The other thing is if one of these towns takes this shoreland zone and approves it, and it goes to Supreme Court or Superior Court,
That's gonna change.
and that's gonna change the DEP rules.
And you're gonna see some,
Yeah, and
some-
you're gonna
you'll see the
that.
challenges
I'm
in the
gonna
coast.
say, You're gonna
Right,
see the
it's already
challenges
started
down
down
along
the
the
beach.
ocean.
The coast will be where the challenges come from more than anything. So we got, we already booked the 20th, next Tuesday night. Want to do this on the 4th?
I'm gonna be 200 miles north of here, but you can certainly do that. and we
I
can
won't be here on the 4th. If I-
All right, so
Big
this,
day in Glen, yeah.
so do you want to do it on an off night that week?
I won't be here.
You're not there because the fair's that whole week, right? Okay. So maybe we get
But
that.
I mean, you can do it, so. I
The
mean,
11th.
what's the date?
The agenda right.
Yeah, let's do it on the 11th. We'll have a very small, short business meeting, and then we'll go into workshop. That's agreeable with everybody.
It's October 11th.
Yeah, our regular next, well, we meet on the 27th of this month, and then we meet, our first meeting of October is the 11th. Okay? And I don't think, just so everybody understands that, and we will make sure that people are notified that we're having a workshop. Typically, selectmen's workshop don't involve input from the public. I think we've heard input from the public, and we will probably contain that workshop into staff and the board.
Since we have media and interested parties here tonight, both those documents, whatever they are going to that workshop, will be available electronically. Hard copies that night too.
And just to also understand that we will not, we may come up with some direction and a straw man that night, but we certainly won't have a finished, polished off document that night, so,
Question?
yes.
So the two documents that night would be the current, already in
Our
place
current
legal zoning
yeah.
ordinance that we've had for X number of years.
Shoreland.
Shoreland
Shoreland.
zone. And the proposed new one that reflects some changes that have been made since the public comment has been received.
Right.
Yes.
And I think what has to be specific in the proposed ordinance is what is more stringent than chapter 1000. You can make that sky blue purple,
Planning.
different text.
And the one that has already been proposed.
Right, the planning board has already voted, so the document
there's
that we
no
have in our
change.
hand is what the planning board has endorsed.
But you're just explaining it better as to what's different from the state.
Yeah, I
and
think
what's
we
more
need to
stringent.
understand, and I think Gary's right, there's a couple of issues. One is docks, right, and the other one is the repair or maintenance of an existing structure that happens to be in a shoreland zone. In docks, we've got a whole myriad of recommendations or no recommendations, and I think one of the requirements in there is there had to be a certain distance from a property line, and then you get, well, there's 3 or 4 people that use the right of way, you know, there's, so, needless to say.
So my understanding is we're getting right out of that business.
That is,
At this
we'll have
time.
that discussion.
Right, okay.
You're gonna see more toward that
I think
philosophy than what we
after the
I just
boat
think the
ride-
people at home should know that that's the way.
After the boat ride, I think that we would, I'm not sure,
Can that be voted on in 2 pieces? So you have the docks piece is very controversial, and you vote on that piece, and the other piece might, the rest of it might pass, and the dock one may go down, or vice versa. And then now you've got half of the ordinance on board, and you go back and work on the other one. So
I think,
That's just you folks. though.
I think that's us. I think
It's just us, Joe.
we come out of here with a recommendation on, do we permit docks or do we permit they're gonna be permitted, but not have a CEO permit to build a dock. It's a temporary structure, right? So we'll have to make that decision. And then I think the other pieces of it, but we need to come out of here with a recommendation of this is what the ordinance is gonna look like.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah, I think
certainly we can have
the
the
ordinance, a
discussion.
lot of the ordinance it is not up for debate, but the docks portion is gonna,
And you certainly should know if we decide not to do anything with docks, we're not gonna do anything with docks.
That's very easy to do that. Change the text.
My concern is that, you know, there are some permanent docks, and I think that has to be dealt with. I don't think that, you know, the dock's gotta come out of the water. It's gotta be temporary, right? And then we don't have to get into
Well, I
the,
mean, yes, I mean, you've got 2 or 3 boathouses. You've got 2 boathouses, I think, left on Osprey Lake.
so I think there's more than, there might be more than that now.
Is that right? 5 years ago, there was,
I'll have at our workshop on the 11th, I'll have a slideshow of our little trip, and I took pictures of the different dock configurations around the lake, and including the ones that have boathouses.
there was 5 back in the 80s.
Anyway, so, is everybody good with that? We'll do that on the 11th, all right? Let's move on to old business item 10A, Old Route 202 right-of-way. Steve, have you made any progress, I guess is the question.
I have made progress. Since our last meeting.
You need one of these?
Which was, yeah, that might be helpful.
What is his name, Dennis?
Pardon? Steve Everett.
Steve Everett is the surveyor. He's working for these folks that want to have this right-of-way extinguished so they can create a more conforming lot. Is that accurate?
3 conforming.
3 conforming lots.
Right.
3 conforming.
Because it's 3 individual residences. Yeah, I submitted to the state back in, I guess, the early summer, and it took a while, but the document that you received was sent to me by the state. And the way I understand this is what you're doing is that you are essentially giving up rights to that portion that's highlighted on the plan, because the town of Waterboro is the title owner of the property.
In yellow or green, whatever that color is to your eyes.
Right. And so what this document is going to be basically the town is just giving up the rights within that portion. And I think it's important, I don't know if it was taken off, but it has to be very clear that also the rights of passage for the public, so that there'll be no more public rights within that strip.
Can we do that?
If you go to the last page here and the document you have there with the signatures on it, you'll see at the top and a little note down below.
I think typically in discontinuances, it's a standard thing because normally the ownership would go to the center line of the road if a town abandons or discontinues. And this makes it, this is more of a legal way to do it. And of course, Route 202 is a well-established, busy road. So I think that this is why they're suggesting that you do it this way.
And on page 3, Steve, at the top, that sentence, not paragraph, I guess, but that sentence at the top of that page stays in there. The town relinquishes the public easement in this crosshatch report.
Yes, correct.
I assume this means that this parcel then becomes subject to the tax rolls for the property owners affected.
Yeah. certainly should, because the abutters would then have clear title to that property that's being discontinued.
Now, is this cutting off anyone's driveway or anything?
No?
No, their driveways are on this piece of property.
Okay.
For some of them, right?
But that's them, because I can see something running through that top section.
And I guess the difference here with us relinquishing the right of easement is the road got moved, right? So there still is an easement. There's a right of easement by these properties.
Correct.
Whereas if you discontinue the road out to nowhere, there wouldn't be a right of, I mean, there still remains a right of access, right? I mean,
Right, but
but there's no other road.
But there's no other road, but here, I mean, would there be any reason for the public to
No, but that's always the argument of a discontinued road is who has rights to
right,
to pass, right?
right.
I have a question for Steve.
Yeah.
If you go on the top of the diagram here with the long skinny piece there, you see where the name Phyllis Sanborn is up there, Steve?
Yep,
And I'm guessing that the Sanborn parcel, whoever owns it now, is going to be benefited by this change because their ownership will go out through that crosshatched area, out to the upper line, correct?
correct.
So we're not cutting them off, we're enhancing their square footage access.
No, because I believe the way it's described in the description itself, the property lines will then extend to the new right-of-way
Right.
limits.
Tim raises a good question, though. Are we making it difficult for somebody owning that Sanborn property? I think it's just the opposite.
It is the opposite, yeah. No, and I think what you're looking at, Tim, is the old Route 202.
It's a broken line.
Yeah, that was back in 1950.
There's words in there, you can't read them.
Okay. So where do we go from here? This is the question.
I think that it's this document, I mean, if the town agrees to go along with this discontinuance, it would take signatures, and then you send it back to the state, and they finalize it.
So my suggestion is rather than us acting on this evening, is that we at least put it on an agenda that is publicized to the public, that we are considering this petition for discontinuance and act on it at our next meeting. So that if anybody wants to show up here and express their concerns with it, they have the opportunity to do that rather than us just throwing it on the agenda and acting on it tonight.
Do you think that this needs legal review?
I would think that would be understood from our part, but.
Well, this came from the state legal department.
Right.
This came from DOT's attorneys. We can have Natalie look at
Yeah,
it
I
if you
think
want.
let's do that just
The
to make.
description came from them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's just have Natalie look at it.
I like Dennis's question. Does the Board of Selectmen have the authority to relinquish town property this way? I know that in the past, discontinuance of roads has gone to town meeting, am I correct?
Right.
So I'm wondering,
No, we have the right now with the charter
oh, okay, all right.
to enact these things. But my concern is that we have discontinuances that don't address, okay, or eliminate or relinquish public easement, right? If you discontinue a road, I mean, we got them all over town. We've got one that we just did was in Global Park. I mean, that was discontinued back in the 90s, and we just came through a court case that says we still have public easement over that property.
Correct.
So,
That's why it needs to be clear
That's right.
in the document.
so my initial question was, okay, is that something that we can do? But when you look at it, there's access. There was access because the road was moved, not, it just didn't shut off the road, right?
Right.
So. Wayne, you had a question?
No, I mean, there was another piece of property right there on 202 that had the same question
Right.
a few years ago, and there's been two or three of those,
Yeah, when 202 was moved,
yeah,
they created a whole bunch of
created
these.
a bunch of them.
And it was the state that
Yeah.
caused that. All right,
Okay, thank you, Steve.
so we'll put it on the next agenda so that it can at least go out in the public packet. All right. Anything else on that? If not, item 11, discuss vote to approve the minutes of the August 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those approved? Pending decisions. We still got the comprehensive plan list. We need to,
Yeah,
They
that's
need to
ongoing.
get
You
back.
wanna keep it on the agenda? or-
I think it just keeps us in tune. Week's action list. You know Natalie
Yes.
with that.
Do have another timing thing. We have to have a public hearing on the fire department bond question. So, we have to do it at least 10 days prior. We've got the 11th and the 25th of October.
And the 25th meets that requirement or no?
It does.
I would think we'd want to get it done as soon as possible.
I don't see that as being, I'll put it on the 11th unless you object.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
September, October 11th,
We're
public
gonna be
hearing.
in November and they'd be voting on it before we
Yeah.
have a public hearing.
But I do think you and Matt can get together and we ought to look at having public hearings, set up some public hearings, whether we do them. The best thing in my mind would be to do them over there, so people could go in and have a discussion and also look around. That might be the only time that they get to go into that.
So you want to do a selectmen's meeting over there? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think we need a public hearing, and we could call a special meeting, right, for a public hearing, and we would do it there. I guess we could run our whole meeting there. Dave, you have the ability to broadcast from there, right? From Central Station?
Yes.
So we wouldn't lose that.
When we meet there the 25th of October.
We could do that?
Isn't that cutting it kind of close to, the elections in November?
Well, I mean, that, you want to ramp up your input and your information education, and that can't get any closer than meeting over there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a public hearing for, this is what. We're gonna have a public hearing on we just said on the 11th.
Oh, okay, on the 11th.
Shoreland zoning, that needs to be, no.
No, yeah.
That
but
could be
the-
either place.
But the 11th, we said we were gonna have a public hearing on, because this question has to go to public hearing on the bond, right?
Okay.
That's what you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll have a general public or
Okay.
an awareness meeting. Jack, you had a question?
Yeah, oh, just I'm thinking about absentee ballots. They'll start long before the 25th.
Yeah.
So you want to do this before that starts.
That's October 8th.
Yeah, they start
Okay.
2-3 weeks, so.
Or fairly early on.
So we will have one public hearing on the 11th, which is only a few
Oh,
days
okay,
after
you're
that.
talking about two.
Right.
All right.
The second public hearing will be, I guess, like they all are, is input from the public.
So you're talking about having them both on the 11th now?
No,
Okay.
on the 11th.
Shoreland zoning?
No, we talked about having a public hearing for shoreline zoning,
Workshop.
workshop for shoreline zoning,
Workshop.
right? Is that night, is the 11th.
Yes. And public hearing then on Friday?
The public hearing will be at 6 o'clock on the 11th. And then we will have a second public hearing on the 25th.
At 6 o'clock.
At the regular,
Two
selectmen's
public
meeting.
hearings on the fire department bond?
Right, and the second public hearing will be at the fire barn.
Okay.
We'll move the
Two
selectmen's
on
meeting.
the same bond, one here and one at the fire
It's
department.
it's a $2 million bond, I guess it could warrant a couple of meetings, right? So,
So no public hearing on the 25th then?
yes,
Oh, yes, that's the second one.
And that's also a regular meeting,
Yes,
25th?
at the fire station. But we'll host it at the fire station.
Yeah.
Do we have wireless over there? So we can hook up laptops, which I didn't have mine in. All right, items needing signature, I'm sorry, discussion of agenda items. I think we've pretty much identified some of that, right?
Yep.
Items needing signature, minutes of the August 23rd regular meeting. The reminders, David will scroll for us. Any other questions, comments?
Can we run an ad on this Public Works in the two local papers here in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think, can we,
The question I've got is, can we do that?
Can we run a public?
Well, no. We can advertise it, but you can't do any, with the state, if I quit or get done, they can't advertise my job for 10 days, because they have 10 days to come back.
oh, you've got 10 days to change your mind.
Yes, so we can't hire, I don't know, does the municipality run under the same as what the state does?
I don't think
And I
so.
was thinking of that coming home here tonight.
Well, I'm happy to have the conversation with you folks about interim versus, full-time,
So,
part-time
so
person.
let's have.
Is that part of your contract? Yeah, okay, that's, the contract would be different
We can
than
have a
the,
meeting in the
No
executive session,
contract.
right, relative to,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
you,
A state employee has 10 days to come back after they,
is that a personnel policy issue, or is that an item in your contract?
I believe that's in personnel policy.
Okay.
so at the next meeting, just so
I don't
everybody,
think it's a no.
if everybody knows, we'll put up an executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss, replacement of the public works director. Okay?
And in the meantime, run the
Yeah,
next 2 weeks.
I think that certainly we can start to put that out there, right? The decision, though, will be made of whether, all
Whether
we
it's
get is,
part-time or.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
part-time,
Yeah.
that's all we have,
Yeah.
right?
It has to.
So,
Yeah.
the question is if you hire a part-time, we'll call it an interim director, part-time, in next year's budget includes a full-time wage, do you have to?
Oh, yes, I would. That's a new
You'd
position.
have, right, you'd
I was
have
gonna
to,
say, it's gonna be,
Yes.
I think at this point, we're only looking for a part-time
Yeah.
intern.
so 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have a further discussion relative to how we're gonna move forward with that in an executive session. Per MRSA 405, whatever the paragraph is, employment. All right? That being said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Good night.
7:13.